I'm that girl who has a boy, many of them. My son and my partner, and then of course my friends. And so, hi, Paul, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm that boy who likes to have a conversation with the lovely host here.
uh, Fun times. So we're prompted to be able to have another conscious mind conversation. It seems very interesting that our teams are sort of pushing us together to be able to have just another chit chat. And again, totally unscripted. So let's see where we're going to go with this. The one thing that did kind of jump out at me when we were just chatting before recording is fevers. When our body is having a temperature, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is fighting off an infection. It actually could also be a higher connection to a higher energy frequency, and the body will feel very hot, and there's a lot of downloads of energy. It's not sickness, it's an upgrade, and it can look like a whole lot of different things. So when we try to use our spiritual metaphysical perspective versus sort of like our human medical knowledge, sometimes we can get things a bit confused. So yeah, ask yourself, feel into it. Is this an upgrade, or is my body doing something else? Ultimately, all upgrades are kind of detoxing something and expanding. So, just see how you are and what you're wanting to fix and help and heal with the body. And sometimes it's just trusting the body is going to be well. Lots of water, lots of good foods, and lots of good grounding will always empower the vessel one way or another.
Yeah, and very oddly enough, yeah, good thing I don't have the cognitive dissonance too much because I've been a nurse for over 25 years and I've never heard of the metaphysical potential as we got into fever that we had talked about a second ago. And um, although it I wouldn't a couple years ago I wouldn't have thought of it, but now looking, it's very easy for me to accept that that's a possibility. And so I think that's growth right there. That's a growth when you can accept and look at the metaphysical aspect. Obviously, I'm in the Western wor- world where we kind of stuck in our ways a little bit when it comes to certain medicine. But yeah, it's good to. And you know what I will say, when these fevers we were speaking of, I did actually think in my mind something, told me about maybe it's part of an upgrade. So that did cross my mind. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And like we can't be sort of perfect at everything when we sort of, we have to experience it a few times and kind of just get into and create a new routine. And when we are so busy with other things on our minds, our other routines of what worked once, it seemed fine, it made sense, it seemed common sense. And also, if you've been trained in an area, we sort of stick with what we kind of are
Sure.
comfortable with and we know. And I know you sort of said, well, because we were talking about Paul's son, who's the same age as my son, which is really funny. Anyway, so when you were sort of saying, oh, well, he's got the fever, but he's been around a lot of people, so he's probably picked up something. Yeah, their energy, their density, my friend, and he's like burning through it and supporting him that way. So again, it's another sort of layer of how our medical system and our metaphysical systems, can actually be the same, but just a different diagnosis, and trusting the body knows exactly what it's doing. It's just there is no mistakes, there's no errors, and it's always about just questioning and expanding. And I mean, we're all growing. Gosh, we're all growing, and sometimes it does take faith, especially when it's our children. We are very nervous and sensitive about our woo-woo stuff, but when it's for ourselves, see how it feels for us. So much to be said about the body.
Right. Yeah. I learn stuff all the time. I have to unlearn stuff all the time, I guess I should say, when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because the more I've learned metaphysically, it's the more, like I said, the more I've had to unlearn. So,
but
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 it's part of
you
the process.
being a nurse, I would imagine that when you have the official sick patient, you approach them with love, care, compassion, sympathy. If you were just like, oh, well, suck it up, it's an upgrade, fantastic, yay, you'd be a cold little bitch on the ward. Whereas you needed to be like sympathetic and like, oh, you poor victim, you poor thing. And like that is necessary. That could possibly be literally what they were needing to have a problem, for someone to care about them and want them to heal and want them to feel better about themselves. That was the medicine they were actually seeking, versus gruesome operations and a whole lot of stuff that wasn't what they were truly seeking. They were wanting compassion, they were wanting attention, they were wanting love, they were wanting support and sympathy and all that stuff that they sort of deserve to empower themselves with. But when they don't know that they're capable of doing that themselves, of course they will have these other things going on for them.
Right. You would have been, yes. Even my first year of nursing, all through the years, I've always said this. I said, a smile is better than any pill I can give my patient. A smile is better than any pill. And I work more in geriatrics, more so than I always had, I treated every patient like it was my own grandmother or grandfather. And them two things made me love my job. And like I said, it was better than any pill,
Yeah.
So
yeah. And
you're right. You just want that human compassion. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure because you would have just been meeting all of their needs that they needed, because they hadn't sort of found it in someone else and they hadn't certainly found it in themselves. You were just that ray of sunshine that gave them so much joy, the upliftment. They would have felt so good around you, looking forward to seeing you and, having your support. You were definitely the medicine, that they needed. And, that's beautiful, because you just being in their presence with your attitude, with your compassion and your true sense of respect to them, it seems like mind-blowing to me. Lots of people who I have personally dealt with, you ask them why they went into that industry, the last thing that really could kind of come out of their sort of delusional mind sometimes was the people. Oh, well, it was great pay, it was this, it was good for this and this, and the very last sort of thing on the list of like, oh yeah, and the people that I was there for, but it was like, it's just amazing what drives people. And when you see like carers and all that sort of stuff, you either have someone truly there for the person, or someone there truly for the label and the I'm a great Samaritan because I do X, Y, and Z, but they're using the label and the assumption of who they should be versus who the person that they are. And there's very interesting experiences and epiphanies I've sort of seen along the way of people using their titles and their positions and their working place to project something that they actually truly are not, and they can't hide that. You can sort of see it. But it's amazing what motivates people to do the things that they do.
Yeah, it is. It's I'm glad that, looking back, that I was a nurse all them years. I learned from so many good nurses, but like you say, I didn't pick up from some of the behaviors that I've seen of some of the nurses that now looking back are of more egoic type of. So I'm glad that even at that point in my life, which I don't, wasn't on as much of a journey as I am in now, or consciously, I'm glad that I didn't pick up on that and it wasn't in my nature. So I'm glad I was around veteran nurses that taught me well.
Yeah, well, I mean, same, because perfect, great examples. You can see someone with great morals, great examples. They may not even have like the top lead role, but you can see a co-worker that's there for the right principles and reasons versus someone who's just there to collect their paychecks. I mean, think I can't remember how long I worked in our own women's hospital, when I was young girl. And, as I was at varsity and sort of, supporting myself through varsity, and, had this job as well. And you could see the people who are really passionate about people versus those who were trying to use and it's interesting, really interesting, the whole medical industry where sort of like that God superior person. I don't even know what to call it, but you would know what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, uh, and it's one of the biggest things that was hard for me in the healthcare field, and I guess in life in general, but specifically in the healthcare field, is that um, I've always had a motto, even from a young age, and I don't even know where I picked it up, but I live this motto to this day. Um, I've done things in my past that I wish I wouldn't have done. So I'm just like everybody else. But one of the things I have stuck with is this thing: do unto others as you would have done unto you. And I've lived by that. But what always bothered me in the healthcare field is whether it be family members of patients or coworkers, that they themselves, a lot of them don't have that. They want, my God, like for example, say a healthcare giver and they have their own family member in a nursing home, and by God, they're going to make sure that their family member is taken care of and blah blah blah, and everything is going to be done to a T. Yet that same healthcare giver, when they're working as that same nurse, they just slop stuff around and don't. Some of them don't care and don't treat them like their own, and that has always bothered me.
Mm.
But there was nothing I could do about it, for that matter. But it has always bothered me that, not just nursing, but in life, where people want the best for their own friend, their own family member, their own children, but but that doesn't apply to somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It never registered with me. I could, even since a kid, I could never understand that.
yeah.
So I guess that's a good thing. I mean, so I don't know.
Mm. I'm getting like flashbacks of so many experiences I had on the wards as well. I remember this one pretty staunch woman, and she hadn't had her own children, and we were working on a maternity ward. And I mean, the rumors were sort of like, she was really brutal and blunt and really disempowering to women who were just, freshly giving birth to their own, first children or whatever. And she had a very staunch opinion about matters. And then as soon as she had her first child, she freaked out basically at the first labor, and then had to have a cesarean section because she fought it and went against the body. And then she's quit. She quit her career because I think she had the biggest epiphany of her whole life. You can assume something, you can study something, and it's not until you actually do it that's when you can have true compassion for, the full experience of, being so vulnerable at birth. And it was interesting because I was talking about that in a channeling yesterday when they were showing me, these huge advanced souls all giddy to jump into bodies, for people who are wanting to have be more of service and bringing big souls into these bringing big souls into the world. It was really interesting because I was trying to figure out more about it, and I don't know if you listened to that session, but and so I was kind of like, there's this huge long queue, but now it was kind of like they all interviewed sort of thing for this position, and one got it, and then one's kind of like figuring out the energy. And I felt I had a very physical experience during that session where basically my whole legs were very effervescent, really zingy. There was lots going on energetic wise for my entire lower part of my body. I was like, this is very interesting, and realized that the soul had come in and had sort of like used my body to sort of ground a bit. And I was like, oh, well, if it didn't bother sort of me, and I certainly didn't get so like, physically nauseous, or like I've never had any haven't had any morning sickness myself throughout all my pregnancies. But it was really interesting, and I was kind of like, well, how would all these souls kind of get practice? I kind of felt like, oh, that soul came in, and and I sort of thought, I hope that's going to help the mother a bit from taking on her workload. But it kind of felt like energy for different locations of the planet is different. And while here I am in my country, and that soul came in for a little bit of a grounding and sort of like an experience, that's not the same country as the mother. And there was a whole lot of things I was sort of feeling into. And I sort of realized that they were sort of talking about how else a soul can sort of be prepared for this frequency. And one of the things they sort of showed me, which was a bit mind-blowing, and I haven't explored it more in a full channeling, but got these senses, is that when a woman's wanting to give birth and get pregnant, and she has these hopes and this connection, she may be late in her period and hasn't had the tests yet, but she's got this hope that she has a soul with her, and she's kind of got this excitement and stuff. She's opening herself up to having a soul come in to experience and be with her for a bit. And that's going to help them be grounded. And so she's using her free will to be able to, as they were sort of saying, we're all like the meat suit's a taxi, and there's like a whole bunch of, passengers, and there's one, driving, taking the wheel. And they sort of showed me that when someone was opening themselves up, using their free will to have a baby, a soul of the baby it's not a baby, no souls are truly babies, but the soul would come in to just feel into this. The mother could feel this extra other, could it just be like just that moment in time when they were thinking about it, but they could feel in an extra soul companion. And then the loss of when she did get her period and to find out she's not pregnant, or no longer pregnant, shall I say, that soul, that loss that a mother feels actually can also be the density being processed and released as well. There was lots that went on there, and I was quite surprised that this is how some souls kind of acclimatize themselves to the density, the energy, the range of emotions, a whole lot of stuff. And I was like, oh, it's quite complex. It's very interesting. And of course, for certain different people, we all have our own personal experiences. And it was just a lot of information that sort of came through. And I just thought, gosh, it's a really big theme right now. We're trying to get our minds open to the idea of us being almost a minibus of souls. In this one thing, but it's not an invasion, it's not it's nothing negative. It is all we're all opening ourselves up to the possibility of having a baby and what does it look like and feel like. And it's, having a late miscarriage myself, I understand the emotional loss that you feel, and because they were, he was with me, he was right. Here, and I could feel him here. And it's again just another part of the grief process and understanding what souls are. And they're busy, they're super busy. And it's just, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I actually felt your emotion there when you talked about with your miscarriage. I was listening to the a session yesterday. They were talking about climatizing and with the pregnancy and the morning sickness, what have you. And that's very odd for me to listen to that, because that has always been on my mind. Obviously, I have 7 kids, and I've seen my share of morning sickness and what have you. And but that is always, I could never find a clear-cut medical, reason why certain things when it related to the, pregnancy and morning sickness and what have you. And so it was good to hear that metaphysically that yesterday.
I mean, I've had quite a few clients that have died in childbirth from, past lifetimes, and, and have had, serious traumas and things like that. So, there can be some, some emotional traumas when you do discover you're pregnant and things like that, that you can't even recognize because it's not this lifetime's experience. But they were really specifically speaking to this, I'll just say she's a motherly goddess, who they were talking about. But I could feel that this was something I actually didn't know whether I wanted to know for myself, and to be able to help her. And it turned out to be, they had lots of things to say. And ironically, some of the stuff that they said at the beginning of that session, they were directly talking to my client that I had today, who had a beautiful session channeling for her and her life journey and experiences and things like that. So yeah, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. Think of the biggest advanced soul here to be a gift to humanity in a human meat suit. And I just get the pleasure of meeting many of them. And today was no exception, because she was just a gift, a serious gift. And it gives me so much joy to know how humanity is in such great hands. And when I was doing a session with Sally the other day, I don't know whether this was this was a private session part, where they were saying the people that are listening to these sessions, very advanced. Some, obviously not everyone, because there's lots of collectors listening in, but they were sort of reminding me that I haven't even met, I haven't met all of the souls that are listening, obviously, but well, not in this conscious mind perspective anyway. I can feel when they are channeling and they read everyone to see who listened to what, who got what. No, Bobby in the back needs another clarification. And so they're all just like, it's interesting. But it was interesting because of the clarification I got, the strong clarification of what I got, of why sometimes they seem to repeat the same information. Because there is two things. Each session, there is a new person listening for the very first time. And also, there are some people that are refusing to grow and cannot grasp these concepts, but are still listening. And, they're using their free will to not grow, not because they're from different collectives or whatever. And so they keep reminding those people, this is us talking to you.
Right. I figured that as well.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to sort of understand. As you were saying before, we've all had experiences. We need to throw away words like mistakes or, the problems I created or whatever. Like, we need to start having the appropriate language if we're going to, grow. We had an experience. We chose our free will. We could have been the jerk. We've all been jerks. That's how, that's part of the list of the smorgasbord of emotions and actions that we had to do. There's no punishment on that unless you don't want to grow and you're still quite comfortable to be the jerk. Well, that's a choice, but how does that life feel for you?
Right. Yeah. That reminds me of one of the things I was thinking about talking about was inner work. I think a lot of people ask or have questions on, like I would say a couple of years ago, I really didn't know what the phrase inner work really meant too much, for that matter. But but in a brief nutshell, it was funny too. I see this little necklace I have on here. I got this, someone got this from a year ago, but I don't know if you can see it. It's a white pyramid of light.
Oh, cute.
I was writing this stuff down earlier and I'm like, I wrote down white pyramid. I'm like, oh, this is a white pyramid of light. So it was kind of neat that that's what I got a year ago,
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. So here's what I was going to say. Okay. So I think one thing, unconditional love, I was going to talk about this, is one thing. And that's what we all strive for, unconditional love, but not unconditional tolerance. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I love it, because it's Oh yeah, I'll shut up. But yes, I'm with you, my friend.
No, that's fine. I just, to me, it's because most people have the issue of, so and so did, like you say, so and so did this to me. I could never forgive them. I could never, and I think they get stuck in that, and sometimes they don't grow at all. Sometimes, unfortunately, because they think in the back of their mind, they're like, nope, I know I could never forgive so and so for what. And to me, I see so much non-growth at times because of that, and you could word it probably better than me, but like I said, unconditional love that you have for everyone is different than unconditional tolerance of what someone did to you. So maybe you can elaborate.
I fully get it. And we have to have acceptance of everything that's happened in the past, learn how to forgive ourselves to be able to forgive others, tolerant of our slow choices to awaken, as we can be tolerant of other people's slow choices to awaken ourselves. But it seems like people get confused. I'm supposed to love and light everyone and have complete, breast friendship bracelets with everyone, versus knowing personal boundaries, because some people don't want to grow, and some people only want to hurt, and that's could be their full life contract with you. They're only ever going to hurt you, and they'll forever hurt you because you need to love yourself enough to know you do not deserve this. You do not deserve to have that belittlement, disempowerment, judgment, ridicule, hatred. And isn't it awful, right? When we want to just love the shit out of everyone, and we feel like we have to love and heal and save and all this sort of stuff, it's not even our role. And when we feel the heavy shoulders because we're just so exhausted trying to drag people kicking and screaming to be not the jerk, not the victim, all that sort of stuff, and then we feel terrible. Oh, I judge that person for being, the energy vampire. Well, if it walks like a duck and sounds like a duck, but we can still love them, absolutely. But we don't need to tolerate them in our lives being that way, because we love ourselves to know, we don't need to, we can accept them and love them, but walk away and empower ourselves and love ourselves more. I heard from the session today, and also from many sessions, the fact of focusing on our own emotions first. They're our biggest responsibility. If we feel someone struggling and being a prickly cactus and refusing to see bigger perspectives, refusing to not accept the ways of the worlds for their lessons and experiences, to find love of self first, we can see this. It's we have to be responsible, because when we are so naturally loving and so deeply caring and compassionate and so giving, that when we overgive, we are disempowering them, and we're disempowering ourselves. And it feels awful stepping away from someone who is they almost need to kind of like hit rock bottom for them to realize they got themselves here, they can get themselves out. And gosh, when they get themselves out, they are so empowered, because they realized, oh, I did that to myself, and I did that to myself to get myself up and out. And sometimes when we see someone in the bottom of a ditch and we pull them out of it and pick them up, we've only taught them that other people will save them. Other people will grab them and nurture them and take them out. And sometimes when they're so used to that behavior of digging themselves into a hole, waiting for someone to come and rescue them, at one point they're going to have to learn to swim. One point they're going to have to learn to step out of that hole that they created for themselves on purpose, waiting for someone else to come and save them. We can suggest to them how to save themselves. That would empower them the most, while not disempowering everyone, including ourselves.
Right. I'm so glad you added on to that topic. And I felt that listeners needed to hear that, especially the way you worded that. That is very good. And that was very hard for me to get to that point, to where, because, I wanted to, exactly, in a nutshell, I wanted to help. And I realized that I was disempowering them, even whether it be your own family, or your children. You're not, and I think that's the biggest thing that people fall into the trap is when it comes to your own children. And I'm so happy that I got to the point to where, I'm like, yeah, you can bail somebody out, you can have them out, but like you said, it is better to tell them, talk to them, and to kind of help them how they can get out of a situation themselves, empower them to do it. So I'm glad I got to that point. How it transpired, I don't know, but I'm glad it got to that point.
Well, lots of practice, with 7 kids, you would realize when you give them no boundaries and all love, what do they do with that? Are they responsible with that, or do they take fucking advantage of it? You know what they'll do? Take advantage of it, because that's what they'll see. They want to find where their limits are, always. Right. And as parents, unfortunately, instead of us being a helicopter parent, which is like doing everything for them and basically baby bird feeding them when they're 27 steak because, we're worried that they're going to choke to death.
Right.
At some point, we have to let them make some of their mistakes. Yeah. To sort of realize, oh, shoot, no one's going to pick me up from this. I've created this. It's like,
that's loving more.
Yeah. Love. You have to empower your children for them to you have to love your children with with setting boundaries for them, which can keep them feeling safe. They know where, they're pushing their limits and all this sort of stuff. But you also need to teach them why you're creating those limits and boundaries for them, and saying, well, you could go and do something beyond what the boundaries are, and you will find out what I'm trying to teach you. And they will only do it a few times and realize chewing gum in your hair is not good ideas.
Right. Yeah. And that's a very good topic as well with the children. And I think that was the biggest one. I was as well. That a lot of people, when I say, if you truly love your child, well, don't get me wrong, everybody loves their child. But to me, if you truly want to empower them, or if you want, help them become a better person, you got, like you say, you got to let them fall. You got to let them make a mistake on occasion. You don't have to be there for safety and security, but it's good to see that growth finally. Yeah. When you see the steps as so yeah. So, and I'm glad people got to hear that.
Yeah. And I mean, every moment's a teachable moment with your children, for them to realize, they have to gain trust to be able to understand your motives. You're not the killer of joy. You are the safety inspector and advisor to give them, like your opinions and advice of, where their boundaries are, because you're not just trying to block their fun, you're trying to keep them alive. And so they understand the principles of why there are those lessons. But I know many broken children who have had broken homes and all this sort of stuff, and really traumatic childhoods, when they haven't healed themselves effectively. A baby is having a baby, even if that baby is 30 years old, because they haven't empowered themselves and realized that they are fully responsible and capable of giving themselves everything that they need, and they're not needing attention-seeking behaviors from others. They're very self-sufficient. Often it needs to have your own child for you to be able to heal and recognize and recall your own childhood for that journey. And so often when you've had a traumatic childhood, you would never want your child to have the same thing, so you have no boundaries. And that child is your master, and that child is manipulative and will say and do anything, and you are fully compliant to the whims of, a hormonal little monster and you just love that hormonal little monster with everything you've got, and you couldn't possibly fathom, stepping in, putting in boundaries. It's kind of like when the horse is already bolted, you're FUCK'd. And I see lots of parents coming in as clients worried, how can they help their children, and it's kind of like, when they don't want to put boundaries in, when they don't consider tough love being a great trigger for growth, the parents are using all the energy to keep bailing their children out financially, and trying to fight their problems socially with them, and all this sort of stuff. It's and then you will notice the parents who realize that their own children are more mature than them and have got not as much trauma, because you can't assume your child's going to have the same trauma as you, but a lot of parents parent as if the child could have and would have. It's very challenging, and this is why they say, if you want to truly empower yourself, get home sorted out first. And it may not even be the people you live with. It's actually, co-parents, children, and you may love your son and daughter, but then feel quite justified to judge and criticize their chosen partner, or extended family members. Truly, we can easily forgive everybody for things that we've experienced, and it's like drinking poison hoping that they would die. If you have bitterness and resentfulness and be in victim mode and frustration mode, because it's not impacting them, it's only impacting you. So we shouldn't be able to have any problems with anyone, in all earnesty, because we love each other at soul level. We're all brothers and sisters. And if you didn't learn and grow from that experience, to find equal balance and neutrality with it, you're still on that journey of learning.
Right. It reminds me of the session yesterday. I thought one of the biggest things that hit home with me is when they were talking, I don't know how they worded it, but they were talking about like us humans here right now. If we had the mindset and we did everything right, and we was able to instantly go through all the emotions and not have and unconditional love, no judgment, and never had any issues, then we wouldn't have any lessons to learn here on the 3D planet, right? You know what I mean? I don't know how they worded that, but
was this when they were saying that advanced souls don't really need to come here to learn as such, because we've already mastered the third dimension, we're already aware of the range of emotions and the challenges? It's about advanced souls feeling very sort of like bored here, and they're very advanced in their own sort of interests and passions, because they're very capable of hyper focusing on certain things and grasping things at a higher sort of like skill set. And so they're very dedicated to sort of distract themselves from the dramas of emotional interactions, and would prefer not to really sort of deal with people and their sort of dramas and limited perspectives, and super fixated on 3D. So what they're trying to say with what my interpretation is, and I haven't listened to it again, was we're not here to really learn. We're here to be support backup dancers for humanity that haven't advanced yet to a fifth dimension, or still struggling to find the experiences and the lessons and the perspectives that they sort of need to be able to find for themselves in the 3D experience. So we're playing 3D, we're playing human for many collectives who are needing, and who are, is that what you interpreted it as?
Yeah, you know what? I do that actually. You explained that part, which kind of was making me wonder yesterday when I heard it, even though I listened to it twice. But I can't remember now. But I'll get to you later. But there was one comment that they made. It was not that comment, but that was one of my comments that I had kind of wondered about, and you explained it very well right there. But there was another one, but I can't remember it now. Just something I can't remember it now, but it'll come to me later. But let me. I wanted to say. Okay, so I was just gonna say we're all here on this 3D planet experiencing all these range of emotions, yes. And my goal, all of our goal with each, is to get to a non-egoic flow to each emotion. Non-egoic flow, meaning we can experience that emotion without ego, and retain that unconditional love without judgment. And we can perceive that emotion from that point on, and be in balance, be in neutrality with, you know what I mean? So that's a kind of little way I kind of look at it too, when it comes to the emotion, because, in a lot of different ways, like I said, we're here to experience these emotions, and an emotion right now that I experience, say right now, 3 years ago, if I had experienced that same emotion, say disappointment, just say disappointment, I would have responded differently. And now, Now I do it differently as well. So one of the biggest problems I see that people have is when people they get disappointed. Okay, so say they're at a family function or just anywhere, and they finally so and so says something, and they blow up and they say something that's judgmental. Well, then they get home later and they're mad at themselves and they're disappointed, which is fine. And but then they give up because they give up on the on the whole spiritual thing, or not applying anything else because they're so mad at themselves for being that judgmental on that one thing, instead of realizing that we're here to grow. And just because you did it that time, that's the time. That's why I call it inner work. That's the time where we got to go back and listen. What triggered us? Is there something in our past? Is there a trauma that's in our past, whether it be this lifetime or no lifetime? What triggered us to react the way we did? And or is it something that so we need to unpack it, like you say. But I think a lot of people don't unpack it, and they get stuck on that, disappointed that they, like, I think I did a while in the back too. So but it's okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's okay to, you know, whatever, if you want to say slip up or whatever on occasion. And it's how you grow from it. I think it's how
Mhm.
you go. And to me, that's one aspect of doing your inner work, is growing from something that you was judgmental on, and you've learned to figure out why. And then maybe that next time that same situation occurs, but you're not judgmental, boom, that's inner work. You've grown. So anyway.
Yeah. And I love your processing of it, because you're taking full responsibility of, why did I do that? What was my reaction? What was my trigger? Blah, 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 blah. And when you're honest with yourself and you've gone through the whole list and you're like, still doesn't feel like me. Why was I that? And then add the other possibility where you're supposed to drop down to that density to play the role of being a judgmental so-and-so or whatever, for that other person to have the opportunity and experience of having this. Because we're still playing the role, and we still have to interact. And this is sort of seems to be the statement that they said in that channeling was, you can't be a high dimensional perspective being and still interact in 3D and do the things you're supposed to do to teach, grow, and
Right.
give people triggers and a whole lot of stuff. Ultimately, what if you were judgmental or whatever? What if it was so someone could say, Dad, or whatever, what are you talking about? Like, and have a conversation, sort of trigger a thing. Because, like, we are prompted often to do certain things. I personally know I don't like it when I am holding people accountable when they're not ready to be accountable. Like, I don't like being that mirror, and I don't like triggering people, but I know it is so worth it when they brace that trigger and they're responsible and own their own stuff. Because what else is going to shake them at this point?
Right. One thing that before I was on the spiritual journey, one thing that I've learned years and years ago, in a nutshell, was that if you try to tell, and I don't know, I was this way as well. If you try to just tell someone, this is what you got to do on any topic, and you're doing this, even if they're doing, say you're doing this wrong, this is how you got to do it. That person, I don't know what it is. We're going to try to do anything but what that person's trying to tell us is. But when you trick somebody, I shouldn't say that. When you make someone believe that they come up with the idea themselves, you know what I'm talking about. If you make them believe, act like they come up with the idea, you lead them, and to where you're like, hopefully they'll catch on, and you act like, oh, that's a good idea. When they actually say it, you're like, wow. And when people grow so much, and I try to do that now sometimes, but it's really hard on the metaphysical, spiritual. I mean, it's worked a couple times, but it worked more in just regular life in the past. But
Mm.
I noticed
Well,
that was really good, even with my kids. But go ahead.
Yeah. So when you remember that the basic things that people need is to be reminded and inspired that they're valuable, that they're loved, that they're special, that they are important, they matter, and that you care about them. So easy to be able to like instill those metaphysical perspectives on them. So we all know that life's a journey and there's lessons in it. So even just asking someone, what do you think the lesson is that for? Like, what did you learn from it? Instead of us telling them what they learned, all that sort of stuff, it's about asking them the right questions for them to stop and think, oh, well, yeah, I'm never going to read those pants again, or whatever, like they're going to have to start thinking for themselves. And when they're so used to reaching out to us for us to give them the answers, for example, a well-worded question that is going to help them find their own empowerment, their own way out of their hole, for example, is a teachable moment for them, which they will never forget because they've done it themselves. And remembering, we don't need to talk about aliens or reincarnation or any of that big metaphysical stuff. It's about empowering them to just love themselves and to feel that they are, that they are intelligent enough to be able to work out their problems and solutions, and compassionate enough about themselves and others to be able to let love lead the way, and all of those really good basic moral stuff that we've heard about. I think this is the reason, the kind of like the core reminder of why people were supposed to like read Bibles when it was probably actually in its purest form. I don't know what that would even look like, but I know sort of like, when Jesus has come in and sort of talked about some of his teachings and stuff, for example, and Buddha's come in into sessions as well, they're teaching us how to be good people. And sometimes we've sort of forgotten about that when we are feeling really hurt and established by our family dynamics and not embracing those lessons and experiences, or, even the culture that we're in. So I definitely know that empowering people it looks like all different things, but encouraging someone with a compliment to be able to master whatever their issues are for themselves, even though it's super tempting to be like, I'll give you the answers straight away. It's about, what's that saying? Give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. Teach them how to fish and they will, whatever. I don't know, buy McDonald's.
Well, and that reminds me back when I first started watching your sessions, whether it be I'm That Girl or the actual sessions. I've always I had figured out prior to this journey that whether it be with my kids as well as being a nurse and having coworkers that I have to manage at the stuff, I learned that quick. We just talked about, but if you make them, if they feel proud to do something, or if they feel like they come up with the idea, well, so I noticed that so I recognized that real quick with you, that you were good at that. And I can't say what session or who you were talking to or what have you, but you were good at trying to elicit the response and knowing what questions to ask, to where they make them think. So I noticed that right off the bat. So that's another thing that drew me to. You were I knew right off the bat you were trying to empower people, and that's one of the things that at that time a while ago when I had looked at a lot of influencers. Most of the influencers, a lot of them weren't trying to empower the people. They want other people to empower them, the influencer. It's all about me. I'm the unicorn, and you weren't that way. So that instantly resonated with me, and I'm sure it probably has with other people, but that resonated with me when I seen that with you, that you were empowering, and so yeah.
Well, I feel very passionate about creating leaders, and and that means that they sort of have to follow themselves. And when you can create and help people empower themselves, they can empower others. And it's kind of like, because I first wanted to empower practitioners because I just thought only practitioners would get this super woo-woo nonsense, right? Like, this is like so, You got to
Right.
convince a lot of people to even sit down and read Dolores Cannon's books, let alone, you know, trust this woman, you know, who's only did, you know, 45 years in service, and then, you know, 19 books, you know, so she's got some information you may want to check out, you know, take it or leave
Right.
it. And you know, and of course people would, you know, tell me how, oh, they're so aware of her, and, you know, oh, they've got all her books and blah 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 blah, and yet they couldn't even apply the wisdom, the knowledge. So deathly afraid of everything, so terrified of death, it's awful, it's dreadful, you know, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, which book did you read from Dolores? Because like they look great on the shelves, amazing ornaments, but open, you know. And I mean, I know I'm not a big reader, so I was kind of like, oh shoot, I'm never going to be able to get through all of those. And I bought them all, and I haven't still read all of them, but kind of go through. And anyway, so I sort of thought that if I could empower and show other people what we were getting in sessions, this would make them ask the same questions or something similar, or, you know, have their own sessions with other practitioners, and kind of like, you know, really just like scratch out of it and kind of like explore the crap out of it, like I kind of was thinking.
Right.
You know, either I'm going to find out that all of my clients that don't know each other are somehow all on this big joke, or it's actually real, you know. And I kind of sort of thought no one else was sort of trying to get the practitioners together. And so I just, you know, and heaps of practitioners were coming in, and we were doing heaps of sessions together, and, you know, kind of thought, you know, this would be really empowering them, because once they were advancing and getting themselves into that consciousness of expansion, of accepting and being processing their journey of emotions through hearing the bigger content, then, you know, their subconscious would be like, sweet, now we can throw all these clients at you.
Yeah.
And, you know, it can just be this, you know, worldwide thing. Because I was talking to, who was I talking to somewhere, an author who's about to publish her book, who's really good book. It's going to be huge for everyone to really heal and grow from this book, in a metaphysical perspective, because it talks about really big concepts. And it's if it doesn't heal people from these with these perspectives, it's going to really give them great food for thought for when they go to, you know, find their own interns and have their free sessions and blah 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 blah. Yeah, so it was, and she was sort of saying, you know, we could both see that, you know, the new interns that are coming through and the new practitioners are so advanced, and they're having, you know, profound connections with Dolores herself in, you know, meditations or dreams or whatever. And, you know, they're awakening so much more faster, and they're, you know, it's this exciting new wave of practitioners that are going to come and are really advancing, able to, you know, comprehend, you know, really complex things, and not be emotionally like losing their shit like I kind of did when started hearing about this information, because they've grown so fast. You know, like, while it may have taken me this, you know, how many years to kind of get to this inner peace, I have seen people almost, you know, within a month, like grow from being completely dormant asleep to being afraid of everything to being so ridiculously empowered. It's inspiring. Like, oh my God. It's like, you know, and it's not just love and light fake words. It's genuine, full on. They're here to be of service, and they're going for it. And it's so refreshing, you know, and so fast. But of course, you know, they need, you know, support, and they need, you know, they need the confidence to realize that they're not just suddenly, you know, batshit crazy.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. For you know, I was thinking this before. For me personally, I think obviously I learn every day, but somehow I still think, or maybe it's just my conscious mind. I think that when I was making my soul contract, you know, I can see me sitting there going, um, yeah, you know, okay, so someday I'm gonna get to this point to where, you know, I can do these sessions, but I can see myself saying, I don't want to get too much information. I want to see how much I can do organically. You know what I mean? And technically, it is organically doing the sessions. I mean, but I feel like that I was in there at the long table and going, let me just see how long I can go and see how much I can learn on my own and discern and practice my intuition. So
I think
I
though,
wonder if other people are that way.
well, I know when I was writing my life contract, I mean, we were supposed to shift in the 70s. So the second waivers were going to come here to be able to land their high frequency and change so much as well. And, you know, the first waivers were amped to be able to get it done. And then the Vietnam War happened, and that was just awful. And it just took all of the consciousness of humanity into this big, you know, another horrible, gruesome war, which had the bonus features of video. So, you know, that just that brought it really into the discomfort of people's homes, the gruesomeness of the war. And you know, and so there was lots of, you know, even you know, had a first wave volunteer who was actually born, I thought because of her age, I was like, oh, she was definitely giving me the, you know, the volunteer vibes. And then to find out she was first wave volunteer just a few years before me, I was like, shut the front door. Like, you know, it's like you can't not I know Dolores kind of put it into these really firm dates, but I've known, you know, some first waivers that are, you know, 20 years old because they died the first time, you know, and they're back here with revenge to make it work. So like I don't think you know, it's not revenge, it's perfect, but you know what I mean. Love a joke. So I think when we were trying to, you know, we were signing up for this, we were thinking, you know, we're going to get it done in a few years and get the F home or somewhere. We did not, you know, we knew it was going to be hard, but we didn't realize it was going to be this hard or this long, you know. And when you were reading Dolores Cannon's books and they're like, oh, the shift soon, you know, it's sort of hard to be like, Jesus, it's not. No, it's not. Spoiler alert. You know, like, you know, when you're talking about that in the 80s, no, you know, but because there was so much distractions and no one was speaking their truth and people were still blindly watching the television, you know, that's programming you to be in fear and to all this sort of stuff. And, you know, more and more people are waking up to it. But, you know, it's these people who are half awake thinking that they were fully awake, and confusing the ascension to the transcension, the shift to a mindset. Like, you know, there's a whole lot of stages to it. And this is what I sort of seem to be, well, it seems like we're waiting for these people who are supposed to know the advanced information to kind of realize, well, keep growing, keep going, come on, you know, this sort of stuff now, like, you know, there sort of seems to be a lot of people that just have fallen into this one mindset of the influencer that they're following, or the few influencers that they're following. They're waiting for their dates of, you know, financial changes of your currencies or whatever, you know, when they're not realizing, I'm still, every day I'm still hearing people saying, who the hell is Dolores Cannon? Is she on Facebook?
Right. It's you. I would think it'd be, you know what, what I see, and I don't know where it's come from and stuff, but I don't know who, if it's ulterior motive from some, where it came from, but I think I see, as I've gotten older, especially in the last 15 years or so, everybody is so divided on whether it come religion, politics. It's like humanity's got to the point where a lot of people, like, if so and so likes this person, is politics wise, they don't want to have nothing to do. I see family members, actual family members, having no, they'll put right across Facebook, don't ever contact me again. I'm like, what kind of world are we in? Right? They're so divided. I'm like, either this just happened organically, or there's things going on that caused us humans to, not to be the victim mentality, don't get me wrong, but that have led to us to be divided against each other, whether it comes to, like I said, religion, pills, politics. I'm like, I can't believe it. It drives me crazy sometimes. I'm like, how could you have your own, you know, mother, father, family member that you love, you know? So however that came into this whole last 15, 20 years, I'm sure it's been a long, don't get me wrong, but I personally feel like that it's really grown in the last 15, 20 years. I don't know what you think about that.
I think people don't like change, and people don't like to be made fools of. And so if you have committed to that emperor's new clothes, and you have got so excited about it, you've promised everyone you're going to go to the fair or the parade to support the new emperor because you love the emperor, you can't wait to see the new garments that he's bought with your money, that that he's collected from taxes, you're fully his guy, you're fully supporting him. And then when you get there and you told everyone you're going to be there, you're going to show up, and you're just going to worship him and see what colors you're going to get for your spring collection, and you go there and you see he's butt naked. What do you do? What do you do? You got egg on your face. Your ego can't be like, oh, hang on a minute, I don't think I want to wear that next summer. It looks a bit drafty. Like you're gonna, because you've told everyone, because you've poo-pooed other people, you get to this point where you become super stubborn, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that garment's divine. That looks exquisite, and you just want to save face. And I think so many people, once you commit to a path, you can't go back, and I feel the same way with people who are super anti the V, right? Like, I'm not going to get inoculated, blah, 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 right? I wasn't very loud about it, but I had my own quiet thoughts and feelings about it, which I didn't want to put upon or impress upon anyone. I was happy to do me, you do you. I don't care.
Me too.
With love, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to judge. I am concerned because I still am trying to understand the significance and what's going to happen here, because I'm hearing some interesting things from sessions, but you do you. And when we hear about nanotechnology, and like Dolores Cannon talked about it with Nostradamus, which I just discovered like just recently after doing a whole bunch of sessions, and I'm like, damn, like that was, those books are amazing. And everyone's like, oh, well, they're in the 80s or 90s, they can't be that, we're in a different timeline. I'm like, are we? Sort of.
Right.
It's interesting, like the timeline hasn't been completed. Let's have a conclusion meeting after the conclusion, right? Because there is still so much interesting information there. And anyway, it's not the devil. There is no such thing as the devil. And humanity is refusing to grow and refusing to get out of fear and to let go of the density, because they're holding on to it like it's something that they are very proud of, and they're not willing to grow perspectives. They're not willing to be able to be loving and to empower themselves, let alone empower others. The very hurt, broken children, and playing adult games, and being very afraid of the future. There's so much to be said for this. Yeah, so those people who have chosen one way or another, unless you're dead or you're dying from that choice, you're not really going to want to admit that maybe you're wrong, and it's still kind of this challenging thing. And this is real. This is taking people's lives, but exit points, right? Exit points have to be respected. Free will has to be respected. And so we're not seeing too many people that have chosen fully hard, I'm saving Nana, and now they're not seeming to really. It's so challenging, because when you've committed to something that you believe in, that you are complying to, you have to be really owning your responsibilities of your choices versus going into a victim. I knew I could have researched it myself. I could have done all this sort of stuff. Lots of people struggle with being accountable, and they could realize that this is a fast exit point for them soon, and they're still struggling to realize that it was always their free will.
It's the cognitive dissonance is real. It's really unbelievable. It actually hurt my feelings sometimes when I think about how so divided people are. Not just that, but I mean, when it comes to skin color, gender, all these different types of things. Sometimes when I think about it, it doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but especially now that I know we're all one, and I've, I just can't figure out how humanity's gotten to this point on certain topics, but in a way I can now, and you explained it very good. So,
You know,
but
we've seen that though, like spiritual people, like, oh, we're all one, apart from those reptilians. Oh, yuck. And it's like, no, we're all one. Oh, no, no, there must be an exception. Like, I still need to hate something. I still need to be worried
right,
about something. I still have to have issues with something, because
right,
if I have to love my neighbor and myself, who else can I, distract my my hobby of being, a jerk? It still can be a hobby for some people, and they still can love it because it makes them feel good about themselves. They're not going to do their inner work. They're not going to truly empower themselves through love. So they've got to
yeah,
have a side hustle, a side hobby that can make them feel justified for how terrible and miserable they feel inside themselves, because they haven't done the inner work. They want to feel crap, but they don't realize that it's feeling crap because of either their food choices or their perspectives. So they have to have, they have to create the devil. They have to create the problems. Oh, it's definitely 5G, definitely something like that,
right, right,
and so again, it's distracting them from empowering themselves in all earnesty. And this is the most liberating thing, and I know you get this too, is when we fully are responsible for our own demeanors, integrity, connections, words, actions, all that sort of stuff, because when we can't blame the boogie monster, we can only blame ourselves. And then, oh, that's instant responsibility. We're very much aware everything we do will have consequences, because it will be our guilty minds going, oh my God, I may have triggered them accidentally. When I was having a re-jerk moment to something that I realized was great, because I got some childhood traumas out that I didn't realize was still lingering. So that was a win for me. But oh God, like, it's a roller coaster. So what do we remember? Let go of guilt. We can apologize. That's still a thing. I've heard that's still very passionate. It's still in fashion. Being accountable for what you've done, apologize, be the bigger person about it, and be responsible for those choices that weren't so fantastic. It's not going to kill you. But
right.
people treat it as if it's the most impossible thing for them, almost as
Yeah,
impossible as doing their inner work.
some people, I'll never apologize. Well, you can, I'm like, well, I don't, you don't say what you want to say. I got to the point to where, and you probably get this too, that like the session was talking about yesterday, you can't just go out and just say certain topics that could be poisonous to certain people. They may not get it. So I'm so happy that I've gotten to that point, to even a stranger, or definitely a family member, because we or love them, we know how, with the gist of how they are. But even if someone that is acquaintance, I don't know where it comes from, but somehow something in me knows not to say certain things, whether it be the family members or whoever. So I'm glad, because I see it all the time where people push people the other way on accident, influencers or just people in general. They'll talk about, you throw out that crimes of humanity type thing, and oh my gosh, people will, they can get discouraged. Ripple effect can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing as well.
Mm. I feel like the people that have heard about certain elements of the crimes against humanity, they either were a part of it in another lifetime or a victim to it before in some sort of format, or even this lifetime. A lot of people that have blocked out being sexually abused as children, for example, either this lifetime or other lifetimes, they get to hear about the children this, now, and they have to process it and feel all of the range of emotions, not because of the children that they've never met, they're only hearing through like truthers and all that sort of stuff, because while that's real, unfortunately, this is an opportunity to have to think about that darkness, because not everything's love and light. If you only focus on love and light, you're missing all of the shadow work, all of the inner work, all of the pain, and actually the realness of being a human. And I want to sort of say to you, man, you are human. We're all human. And it's like going to Disneyland and pretending that you're at, I don't know, somewhere else. Like, you're here. Be here now. Act it, be it, feel it, dance it, eat it, and that's what we have to do. And I know that is so challenging for people who are not grounded. That is so challenging for people who are so sensitive to emotions, that actually, if they allowed themselves to feel the energy and actually process it and talk about what they feel on a daily thing, people's terror, people's, like, the whole range of everything, it's so overwhelming, it can drown us. You know, like, there is so much going on, and we have to find balance and neutral and still keep going. And if we can't ground ourselves, that's when we want to leave the bodies. That's when we will want and need to, like, sleep more and distract ourselves more and not participate more. And they're saying we have to participate. Like, we have to find those strangers who are having those meltdowns and love them. Love them. But not to the point of supporting them once again out of the hole that they're going to jump back into tomorrow because it felt so good that someone cared for them. You know, like, we're teaching them how to love and empower themselves. And
that's a fine line.
Oh, yeah. It's the balance, right? And sometimes we have to be accountable. We don't want to be in the situation. You don't want to put yourself back into the situation again. So how are you going to learn to not only get out of that hole, but cover it up, because it's a danger, you know, like, pack it down with something, plant a beautiful plant, or, you know, something, you know, we have had our whole lives full of potholes that we've dug for ourselves, little triggers, little traps of emotional joy waiting to, like, quicksand us up to our, you know, eyeballs and fun. And it's kind of like when you master jealousy, when you mask insecurities, when you master all of these things, you kind of get to, like, do a little burial ceremony. I complete you. I've mastered you, you know, and you're, like, pushing it down, like, you cannot trigger me. And, you know, celebrate that. You know, then you can stand on that even ground, being so balanced, and just, you know, do every little dance you can possibly do, coordinated or uncoordinated. We don't judge, and nor should you, but enjoy that success. Because seriously, when we write down all the list of the range of emotions and question, have I mastered this one? Am I still sensitive? Oh, that's definitely raw. You know, like, actually go through the ones you can tick off and say, this does not bother me. I keep having this as a little tester to see, how does it feel? Done. Nothing.
Right. It's a good feeling. I agree. Right.
Yeah, like, play emotional bingo with yourself and see, you know, because that's where you find where our little weak points are. But it's not weak, it's still human. And so master it, work on it. If you are sick of blindly walking through life and finding all these potholes that haven't been sort of filled up, then actively find out where they are before you have that knee-jerk reaction in front of someone else. You know, if you've got insecurities, or if you've got something that still feels really raw, figure out how to empower yourself before the embarrassing, you know, emperor clothes like situation where, you know.
It makes me think that sometimes the spirit guide, our guides, are like, sometimes, you know, let's see if these really truly master this, and they do some type of situation to throw us into a little test. And I think that sometimes I'm thinking, I beat the test.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you, because it's kind of like, you know, it's, you know, I mean, I did my driver's test, and I practiced for it, and I did lots of bits and pieces for it, and, you know, and I aced it. Now, if I had to go and do a quick examination now with no prep work, I think I may not know all of the current, like, the things that I used to know, right? Like, oh shoot, actually I better, you know, I better get a road. And because the road codes change all the time, right? Like, I think they do, and you know, we have new rules here and there, and blah 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 blah, right? So while I mastered that, while I got a pass and a certificate that now I can drive my car, you know, I've been busy with other stuff. And what I think I'm, like, confident in with driving, because, you know, I haven't had any accidents, blah, 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 blah. Actually, my skill sets were great then, but because I'm just in this routine, I may have forgotten actually the full rules. So yes, I agree. You know, we will get tested to see, have we created new habits, or have we half healed something sort of a dip now rather than a huge like valley that it used to be. And it's just a test to sort of, but they're not sort of like hoping that we fall. It's more like, keep that in your mind, keep this in your memory, practice this, make this a routine, because, you know, we want full routines, and sometimes a few practices won't strengthen everything, you know.
Yeah. Can you give me 1 second? I got a little one right here.
Sure. Yeah. Not a problem. You know, we're still human doing parent stuff. Well, no, he sounds like such a sweetheart. We should probably wrap it up anyway. I can't remember. I mean, you didn't acknowledge the stuff that we were going to cover. I think you had like a list.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Being human, you're allowed.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here if I had something else. I'm trying to. Okay, there's a box elder. You guys got box elder bugs there?
No.
It's called a box elder bug. No, a stink bug.
Are they green with like a little shield back?
It's like a diamond shaped back to it. Yeah. They come at this time of year. It's really weird. Yeah. Okay, I just want to see what I got here. There was one topic, I think. Okay, I think we talked about basically that when, like I said, the people that get discouraged because of one situation, and I'm saying to them, that's you know, you can't get discouraged over one because you judged somebody or you said something in a situation that you wish you would have said. It's how you respond after that, how you know. So it's okay to do that. You know, that's, to me, that is doing the inner work. You know, when you go and the very fact that when you say something that you wish you would have said, the very fact that it bugs you, you know, it makes you wonder, why did I do that? That's, to me, that's an aspect of inner work, you know. So people, I think my point is, I think people need to not get discouraged on the little like a little stepping points, you know, that's to be expected. So
yeah, absolutely, it's a bump in the road, you know. And you know, sometimes these old bumps in the road, we sort of feel like, oh God, have I just looped? Have I just started back from the beginning of the journey? And potentially no.
right.
You know, I've only seen a few people go super backwards in their journey, you know, and that's all their free will and choices and stuff. Like, we are growing, even though, you know, we may not sort of notice the rate or the speed or the progression of our personal journey. And so, you know, sit with it for a bit. If it does fully, you know, that speed wobble does like make you fall on your butt, you know, maybe there's something else. Oh, that reminds me, 2 of my clients now have had full on really dangerous physical falling over, tripped over themselves, both for the same reason. And I just want to remind you all, you know, if you're too busy and distracted, you will get a break. And it may not be a break in time that you want necessarily, because it may be a broken bone or something like that. And, you know, when we're not focusing, when we can't balance and ground ourselves because of the density here, and we want to be out of the body and be absent-minded, because we're like, our souls are literally trying to like just get out of that physical body and let the physical body. It's kind of like you're letting the vehicle, like the backseat drivers, drive while you're trying to, like, you know, look at the scenery or something like that. You know, of course, I can't helicopter the shit out of you to protect you from walking. I would love to though, but, you know, keep you all in bubbles. But maybe a nice reminder, if we are not focusing on what we're doing, and slow down, stop working hard, but work smarter, and be able to just be very present in what we're doing with our bodies, what we're doing with our minds. And if we are too distracted, or too out of the body, we can have some accidents that we may not consciously have been really needing.
Let's see. Just to add to that, mine consciously did need. I fell and broke my hip at the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I've always had a bad leg to begin with from a car accident, but right when looking back on it, when I fell and broke my hip on the ice, looking back on it now and have for a couple of years, a lot happened mentally that caused me to look at my life. During that time, I had to sit up in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and so sometimes things happen for reasons, sometimes they don't. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, when you get a small little fumble where you sort of scrape your knees and elbows, ouch, and that will be like a little kind of keep in the body, and nothing will keep you in the body more than pain in the body, because it's getting your attention and sulking a bit, because you sort of can do certain things that aren't right for the body if you don't honor the body. So I know that the guides will literally watch you fall on your face, and be like, I wonder if they'll learn this time. And they're not trying to hurt you. They find it very hard when we are so distracted that we're not focusing, because the alternative could have been walking out in front of a car or something seriously dangerous. So they keep asking us to drink more water, they keep asking us to ground, and they keep asking us to do the basic things like truly love and respect ourselves, and really be more focused. Like, it's not selfish to be focusing on all of the balance of emotions, to make sure we're grounded, to make sure we honor the body, take the time for us. That's not selfish, that's not egoic, that's been human and being a responsible human. You are a houseplant with complicated feelings, and you have to honor the houseplant, otherwise it will die. And I know that we're here to be living, and I know lots of people that have tried to have exit points and just can't do it, and they wonder why. And the subconscious is like, it's significant to be here, it's purposeful, you can be here, you cannot escape a second before you're supposed to.
Yeah, I think that's very nicely said. I like that. I was gonna say one other thing, just, and you don't have to, just a little short thing that I've, for any of the listeners. I had never really heard anything metaphysically. I mean, I guess nothing that I picked up on in the past, when I guess prior to a year ago, regarding food and what have you. But I will just not clarify, but just share with people that within the last, I would say, year, it started slowly about a year ago. Um, I I didn't really notice at the time; it was just small. But from a year all the way up till now, it's been the last 6 months. Something changed in me with my cravings with food, and um, I used to eat a lot of meat, a lot of ground beef, like hamburger. I would eat, and that's just how I was raised. Well, so it's not just that, but even my cookies that I would like to dip in milk, I don't even have cravings for that anymore. In fact, I mean, I'm only saying this so if other people are similar to this, do not get scared. It is so much with me to where I have to buy these drinks that they call dietary nutrition. It's like a meal in a drink, and we lots of times we give them for people in the nursing home, for people that don't have appetites. Well, I pretty much live off of them because I have no um, motive to want to eat hardly any food. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. So I will drink them things because I know I have to have sustenance. I drink a lot of water, but I drink. But I just want to let people know that I've heard a few people talk about it, but I personally have gone through the appetite change, and not to get scared of it. with me, at least, I'm not scared of it. Like, well, the people like, don't you wish you had cravings for this and this? I guess if somebody would ask me that a year ago, I would have said, yeah, I don't want that, but it's all smooth out and it's fine. So I just want to let people know that that does happen.
Mm.
I'm an example of that. It does happen. So,
Yeah.
and it's not a bad thing. So,
Yeah, yeah. And if it isn't happening, don't sweat it either. Just respect, your own personal journey, because we're all at different stages. It doesn't mean you're not going to the new earth or something, so don't, catch into a fear for that. But what Paul is saying is right. Just remember, if you are still addicted to sweets, it's because you're trying to treat the inner child that may have not been treated very well. And so, honor all your habits and explore it. And again, this is about taking the body seriously and respecting it. And it seems like the Bovine Collective is wrapping up their show here. There's only enough souls, there's only a certain amount of souls that wanted to be here of service in the way that they're being kept. And lots of it's karma at this point. But lots of souls don't want to help this way. So, there's big changes. And while we may be afraid and we can see people scared that there is going to be, potentially different food options and choices, this is to trigger everyone awake. When you've been complying to today, there's going to be something that's going to kind of push you compliance or question the ways of the world. And it's not an accident. And when you remember everything's purposeful, all is well, everything's significant, seeking the metaphysical perspective of things is always going to be just a helpful confirmation of what you already intuitively know within your own wisdom and knowledge, how sort of perverted this world is, while still respecting people's choices and free will and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. Just to clarify, I didn't know metaphysically why that whole appetite thing changes me, and so yeah, so you clarified that very good. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
And the hardest thing with the hidden childhood issues is that we can't remember always our childhood. We don't remember every single minute we've ever lived. And so sometimes it can be too traumatic and just not for us right now as we're trying to empower ourselves as adults, because the more you empower yourself today, the easier it is to go back into that crap. The easier it is to be able to be responsible, to have no victim, blah, 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 right? But sometimes each individual person, it seems like they have to get to a certain level of their sort of awakening, their empowerment to be able to cope with what happened in the past. And sometimes what happened in the past can't be, you have to be so advanced and so mature and so in balance and not meltdown. And when you're looking at, why would I ever want to have a life contract to be raped, for example, or whatever, it can feel too overwhelming to consider that this was part of your life contract, to be the person experiencing it, or blah blah blah. It's a lot. There's a lot of experiences here, and a lot of them are still taboo. You can't talk about them, and especially if it's one of those distant, foggy memories where you don't quite know, don't have the proof, but you just have this worry and concern. This is when you need to double check with your subconscious about what happened and why. Finding out the significance of every experience is truly profound and very liberating, to be able to get their perspective, because they want us to have the appropriate perspectives for our journey to help us, especially those volunteers, especially important. Everyone deserves to understand their truth and want to seek it out. So is there any more before we go?
I just want to say, I guess, one parting words, that for all the different collectives and subconsciouses that you communicate with, I would like to thank them and for all the information that they provide to you to help, for all of us listening, and for all that for trying to explain things to us, and it's for where they're at, to take the time, and go through these sessions with you. We appreciate it, and we appreciate what you do, Joe, for explaining it, and being so, you have that ripple effect. Your genuineness and the compassion, and the calmness, and the genuine respect that you have, anybody listening can see and feel into it, and see that that's what you're emitting, and that makes, absorbing and applying the information so much easier. So I just want to say thank you, and as well as to the collectives.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's certainly happy to help assist, because we're all one, and they're wanting to help support, because so many people are distraught by say like the bovine collective. They love the cows, they love everything about a cow, and the thought of what happens to the vine collective is deafening and breaking to their hearts. They just feel like they're surrounded by like milk drinkers and ice cream and all this sort of stuff, and it really offends them so much. And we all are so sensitive to the way of this world, and this is why they're not in a rush to get this done, because this is the prime lessons and experiences for everyone to be triggered deeply, so this will never happen again. We can't learn any other way, apparently. So yeah, anyway, and I'm happy to be of service, because this is this is helping me personally be able to have my inner peace and balance. And I'm still working through being human myself, very much so. I'm very compassionate to everyone wanting to empower themselves, because it's a perfectly beautiful journey when we sort of notice how far we've grown, and you can feel it within yourself without I think this is the hardest thing. People they feel bad that they've grown when they can see other people that they used to know haven't grown. We're not happy for their lack of growth. It's about a reflection of ourselves. And when we can notice, whoa, I've actually grown quite a lot, celebrate that. But because we're so compassionate to others, we feel sort of quite, and choose to feel bad. Anyway, okay, my friend, love you. Have a great evening, and love everyone for listening and taking their inner work seriously. Oh, so cute.
All right, it's nice talking to you. I'll be back in touch with you. I'm gonna try to lay him down now.
Bless him. Okay, bye.